Horror games are great, especially if you want to make Dave go, "What do you mean?
What do you mean?
Or
Me?
they bring an added tension and focus to all sorts of genres: puzzlers, shooters, parkour-based role-playing games. And so with no more messing around and only a bit more scared Dave,
Oh God!
here are our top 10 horror games on PS4. Would it be okay if we start with Dying Light? Because with no more interruptions, I really want to explain that thing about
I'm a goddamn parkour instructor!
Well, if anything, that's made things more confusing, but yes, he is, and welcome to the city of Haran, where a disease has turned the population into zombies, and a group of survivors stay alive by free-running everywhere. We know how it sounds.
I'm a goddamn parkour instructor!
But Dying Light pulls it off. The game is an unlikely triumph of fleet-footed traversal, weapons crafting, and crunching melee-heavy combat. Daytimes are atmospheric but pretty standard, with the real horror saved for night when the infected are more powerful and the volatiles, these guys, come out to play. Few skill curves are as satisfying as this one. You'll go from heaving yourself slowly over walls in perpetual panic to gliding over rooftops feeling invincible, and a committed community and continued developer support means there's loads of extra content, including active co-op and multiplayer modes, and a huge expansion in the following.
Do you know what my pockets were full of when I showed up in Haran? F***ing business cards!
You all know Rob, right? To make things more interesting, I've asked him to read our next entry in the style of someone being chased by Resident Evil 2's unstoppable tyrant super soldier, Mr. X.
Wait, what? Where is he?
He's directly behind you.
Is he? Oh my god, okay. Well, the Resident Evil 2 remake is the perfect is the perfect example of the spirit of a classic game being captured for a new generation of players. And oh my god, just give me a second here. The remake was faithful to the originals in terms of story and characters, and he's still coming, isn't he? He's still coming. Can I use a flashbang?
Yes?
Okay, but feels totally contemporary and refreshed. He's coming, isn't he? He's coming. With puzzles, with puzzles redesigned and overhauled, and the relentless stalking terror of Mr. X giving even the simplest task, like opening a flipping door, a life or death feel. Right, open, in your own time.
I don't think that's going to work.
It is going to work.
It didn't work.
Well, that's fine anyway, because I've said everything important. Resi 2 Remake is a gift of simultaneous nostalgia and razor-sharp horror that's brilliant even when you're being beaten to death in a dark corner.
And especially when you're watching it happen to somebody else. Kindly man, he'll be missed. Next up, on the theme of relentless, terrifying stalker enemies, we have Alien Isolation, and yes, I did think about getting Dave to read this entry in the style of someone running away from the alien, but we already know what that looks like.
I'm the boss!
So instead, here's a condensed version of my actual experience with the game, which, as a big fan of Ridley Scott's film, I was very excited about. Careful authenticity, a menu screen forming an anxious tribute to the indifference of space. Who doesn't love those? But the game itself was genuinely too scary. Atmospheric bumps, a feeling of paranoia, and then the arrival of the alien itself meant that I got stuck, actually stuck, in this box, too afraid to leave in order to sneak past the alien. So I put the game down for, 2 years until I read some advice about this noise and how it means the alien is in the vents above you, or in other words, not right next to you, about to demonstrate who is and isn't boss. This was the tiny shove I needed to push on, to understanding the cat and mouse dynamics of the alien, to experiencing the uncanny threat of the working Joes, and to drinking in level after level of stylish, faithful, alien-esque environmental design. This is a brilliant game that might actually be too scary for its own good. Please, please, don't let that stop you from giving it a try. Find us another game that is as much fun as Until Dawn, but still pulls off moments of genuine horror. We will wait. This story-driven romp is a knowing teen slasher with a semi-recognisable, 100% expendable cast, including Rami Malek and Hayden Panettiere, all playing terrible people who make equally terrible decisions. Your job is to take over at key moments, revelling in the cliched setups and tropes, guiding our characters to safety despite all their lack of common sense and mean pranks.
You guys are jerks. You know that?
Quite right, Hayden. Let's let them all get killed as punishment. Not you, though. Not like last time. If you're feeling more generous than me and have quicker reactions, it's totally possible to keep everyone alive, although the mixed rush of horror and glee that meets the death of characters you love, or love to hate, is a huge part of the fun. And that's what Until Dawn is. In on the joke, but genuinely tense fun, and with the replayability born of its multitude of possible outcomes.
I really want to spend some quality time with each and every one of you and just share some moments that we'll never forget.
Space now for a game that's a little smaller than most on our list. Inside is a focused, paranoid side-scroller that's all about conveying the horror of being a child in a world of unexplained checkpoints and military installations. What happens if they catch me? Why is there a fridge here? When did dogs get so fast? Dozens of artful touches from deft sound design to the boys' anxious animation make for a richly atmospheric experience that begins with clever tactile interactions and builds to moments of breath-catching suspense and all-out what the hell just happened. Inside is an intricate, polished gem that just happens to be horribly scary too. For many people, us included, games don't come more horribly scary than Outlast. Like the best games in this list, Outlast doesn't avoid genre clichés so much as power right through them. Remote psychiatric hospital? Check. A conspiracy to cover up human experimentation? Check. Jump scares that'll... Sake! Come on! King honestly! What elevates Outlast is a keen sense of cruelty directed at you, the player. You can't fight back. This is a game about running away and suffering. And it's one that quite often happens in the dark, at which point you have to peer through your camcorder's night vision lens to see, forcing you to look directly at the very stuff that's frightening you. Until you run out of batteries, that is, and then, well, Bioshock, more like Biohazard. If Until Dawn is a classic cabin-in-the-woods slasher, then Resident Evil 7 Biohazard is firmly in the tradition of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre or The Hills Have Eyes, messed up backwater exploitation set in the seediest pit you can imagine. Specifically, the Baker House, where you, Ethan, arrive looking for your missing wife, Mia, and find what can only be described as a real doer-upper. Oh look, there's Mia now. Hey Mia, what's the deal with... Why? God, what? My arm! At least tell me someone's going to stick it back on with tape and staples. Oh good, that's probably fine. Oh, who are we kidding? Things are not fine. There's something very odd in the Baker house. Not just the plates of greying intestinal slime, or the fact that Mr. Baker is impervious to walls and bullets and fire. And it's up to you to find out through what turn out to be pretty classic Resi trappings. Puzzles, finding things, the most elaborate front door lock in the world, with an added layer of putrefying nastiness. Nastiness which is only heightened if you play the game in PSVR, which you can do from start to finish, and which is recommended, naturally, by Dave. Some people think that Bioshock is not a horror game, and to those people I say nothing. I'm too busy having one of those non-horrifying plane crashes and then immediately witnessing a non-horrifying murder accompanied by pathetic begging and loud, wet noises. We're on an adventure. I wonder who the murderer is. If they succeed in breaking into my bathysphere, we might find out. Yes, for the record, I do think facing an army of mutants in a creepy underwater dystopia counts as horror. And no, I don't think that the horror label detracts from any of Bioshock's other qualities. Sensational world building, a set of powers geared around player choice, and a walloping mystery narrative. I mean, just look at the Little Sisters, a brilliant, grotesque creation. We don't need another reason to put Bioshock on this list. Now let's get out of here before the Big Daddy finds us, or someone makes us do a would you kindly joke.
You already did one.
What are you talking about?
Oh my god, it works.
Okay, let's forget all about that, and indeed everything else, except that we're called Daniel, we live in Mayfair, and... Wait, this isn't Mayfair, this is Brennenburg Castle from Amnesia the Dark Descent. And I guess we've woken up here because we're being hunted by some kind of shadow, and we have to take on the Lovecraftian tinted horror of this castle to find out the horrible truth. Yep, that's basically what this letter from myself says.
Don't be afraid, Daniel.
But I am afraid, and actually I'm right to be. Both Dark Descent and its prequel A Machine for Pigs are included in PS4's Amnesia collection, and if you remember anything from this entry at all, make it that both games are classic survival horror in a very effective and unpleasant setting. You will be scared. You should play them both anyway. In the Dark Ages, before they invented lava, children would play "The floor is rats," and then one day the wind changed and it was true. That is more or less the setting for A Plague Tale: Innocence, an atmospheric stealth horror that takes place in Aquitaine in 1348. Plague is sweeping the country and the Inquisition are on the march. Squeezed between disease and authoritarian religion are you and Monsieur de Rune and your sickly younger brother Hugo. You'll dodge guards, creep through sodden carpets of human remains, redirect writhing rivers of rats and think, actually lava wouldn't have been so bad, before you remember that lava hasn't been invented yet and get on with finding a cure for Hugo. No, not penicillin, that hasn't been invented yet either. It'll have to be made of rats, or with special ingredients found in a special book that Amnesia tracks down. One or the other. And that's our list of the 10 best horror games on PS4. Let us know which ones you think are missing from our list in the comments. Give this video a like if you enjoyed it and subscribe for loads more like this.
For the players.